cool. So I'm going to talk to you about how to become the only person your prospects wants to work with. So I did just mute you, but if you want to unmute to answer the question, you're more than welcome to. Why do you think it is that we want to become the only person our prospects wants to work with? Anyone got anything they want to shout out about? Why would we want this outcome? Henry?
It's the obvious that obviously you want, the work in a number of cases. I think you want the brand recognition that, that comes with that. So if you've got people constantly coming back to you and they're happy and they're content and they promote you through their network, it's a win-win-win, really, isn't it? I think that's what we're after. Yeah,
work to show up naturally, for sure. Anyone else? Michael, you've taken your mute off.
Yeah, I think really you want people to connect with you because you want to be able to help them. So my whole journey, even when I was in food wholesaling, was of course it was to sell, but I wasn't overselling. I really wanted to make sure that my clients got what they wanted. I've basically been trained by John Lewis through Waitrose, and it's always really give the service that the customer wants and then always come back and recommend you. So that's really why you want people to work with you. And if you show that you are you're the trustworthy person, they can always come back to you. And they don't have to come back and buy, they can come back and you can advise. That's it.
Okay, so why is it when we structure our business that we want to set ourselves up to be the only person that person chooses to work with? Karen, you had your mute off. And Tessa, you did too.
I just want to say I really like to, because integrity is something I value very much. So I really want to build that trust relationship with people. And if you have that with certain people, they'll refer you to other people too. So
yeah, absolutely. So referrals again. Tessa, what about you?
Well, I think it was about referrals too, because if people only want to work with you, they'll refer you to their friends. Yeah,
absolutely. Cool. All right, so a couple of other ideas. The reason why we want to be the only person people want to work with is because when that happens, yes, we get referrals. And when we get referrals, it actually cuts down the time we need to spend on sales and marketing, which means we get to do more of what we love, which is that 70% I was talking about earlier on. It also means that there's no price negotiation because people respect us, they trust us, they value us, and they're like, yep, sure. I know you're going to give me a good service. I know that, you know what they say about if you pay cheap, you'll pay twice. So they're just like, yeah, that's your price, great. And for us, we just get to name our price and we get to be in a very good place in our world because we're being paid well. So we're not worrying. We're not having to think about ourselves at the same time as thinking about our client because we know our world's taken care of financially. It also leads to better working relationships because they trust us as their expert. I did have an experience earlier this year where I got hired, no problems at all being hired, but actually the dynamic I realized later was they had hired me thinking I was a freelancer. And so they would take the LinkedIn profile I'd written for them and then reorganized it. And you put the two next to each other and one was dull and boring and one was like, yeah, I want to read this. And I checked out with various people and they literally didn't understand my expertise and what it was I was bringing to the table. So it was more like I was a freelancer. And so that is, again, like why we want to have a better relationship, better working relationships with people is because they actually trust our expertise. They receive our expertise and they go, yep, got it. I know this person knows what they're talking about. And again, that just leads to just a better world we're working in. It also means we can pick and choose who we work with and not have to go with the clients we don't want to work with. And also that we deliver better results for our clients because we're more focused on them and just able to do that job so much better. And it means that we can focus on our subject expertise as well. So when it comes to how we position ourselves in the marketplace, it really does help when that person comes to us pre-sold and ready to buy, when they just wouldn't consider working with anybody else. We cut down on so much of that sales and marketing, and that's so much that waste of time. And we just say, yeah, that's a great contract. I want to work on it. And we move forward and we feel great. So getting to this holy grail is really worth the effort. And it doesn't actually take that much to achieve. So I want to just tell you a little bit about my story. It's a bit of a weird graphic, I'm sure here. The blue dots represent like smaller companies, maybe between 3 and 10 people. And then obviously the expert entrepreneurs or investors as well come to me as well. People buying businesses, and that's the yellow dots up there. But what happens for me is that prospects come to me pre-sold and ready to buy. And actually, it was only last week somebody pointed out to me when they invited me to speak at their event, talking about how to get $1 billion clients, that I actually realized that I had done that, and I had done that really easily and effortlessly. And, you know, people talk about, oh, I want to work with corporates. I want to get in with corporates. And, you know, Sales Navigator is created to help you to manage the account. So if you were looking at Canon, for example, you'd in Sales Navigator on LinkedIn, you would find individuals that could be your inroad to get to those people, and you'd clump them all together, and then you'd be kind of stalking them on LinkedIn and commenting on their stuff and connecting with them and trying to get that appointment. And we've all had those messages come to us where someone's like, "Hi, do you want my services?" And you're like, please don't pitch me the minute you've just connected with me. And that's very much what you do when you're going proactively. And it's a lot of time, it's a lot of follow up, and you have to make a lot of phone calls. And, you know, that statistic that says you need to be following up with your prospects 8 times to get a sale. Well, we just don't have time for that. And I'm going to talk about how to avoid that later as well. So with these people on here, these big corporate clients that you can see here, these are all clients that I have worked with and worked with extensively, and they all came to me pre-sold and ready to buy. So Asda was actually in the previous company, and that came via recommendation from LinkedIn's head office in Ireland. That was through a partnership that we were in, and they came to us ready to work. So, you know, partnerships are a brilliant way to make this happen. So there are partnerships that you can make, go for it. Canon was still in the previous company that I was in, which would be, it would be nine years ago now. But it's a really interesting story on that, because we didn't need to, it doesn't actually relate to that company, because what happened is the director of channel sales, so think of Canon, think of all their photography equipment, think of all of their printers and all those things. You never go into a Canon shop. You go into Dixon's, is that still around? A Carphone Warehouse and other places like that, and you'd see the products on the shelves. So he was in charge of all of those channel partners to get all of those products out through those shops. And he was talking about LinkedIn during the day with his colleagues and thinking we've got to do something about LinkedIn. At 11 o'clock at night, he starts Googling around, going on LinkedIn and trying to find a LinkedIn trainer. He comes across my profile at 11 o'clock at night, and he's like, oh, this looks really interesting. This is what I want. He books an appointment in my diary. I get up the next morning, switch on my computer, and I've got an appointment booked in with him at 11 a.m. So within 12 hours, I've got an appointment with him. I have the appointment with him. And 4 days later, my colleague is in their offices, giving them their small team a little demo. That goes on to be a full contract. And then I left the company and left them to it. But just as I had seen the vision of, and it happened exactly as I knew it would, they opened up all of their channel partners. So then that company went through and worked with all those partners, and it led to a lot of money. And he came in pre-sold and ready to buy. He didn't shop around. He didn't try and find he didn't get proposals. You know, proposals take a lot of time, and often you're in competition with somebody else, and they're just not worth doing. Because often you're just a place filler because they already know who they want to work with. And then also on that, you know, Oracle, they came to me, one, because I met one of the people via an event, and also it came in another direction when someone found me on LinkedIn. They hadn't talked to each other. They just both approached me at the same time. DLL booked into my appointment, my calendar, didn't know they were coming there, just went, oh, there's another appointment here. Who's this with? Who are they? I don't know them. And got on the phone, and that has led to 2 years worth of business. And Daytel as well was exactly the same. And Fujifilm also happened exactly the same way. I was like, oh my goodness, right, okay, I've got that in the diary. I told them I was fully booked and I couldn't work with them until 12th of January. And they asked for a proposal. I just was like, I don't know if I want to do it. I don't know. And I was so busy over Christmas, I didn't do that proposal. On the 12th of January, the lady emails me and says, can you just give us your pricing because you're hired? And it turned out she wrote the proposal for me. So that is what I'm talking about, being pre-sold and ready to buy. She said, I just needed you to be the one hired, so I wrote the proposal for you because I didn't want us working with anybody else, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's just what you want, isn't it? And then again, with all of the smaller companies, people come knowing who I am, trusting me with what I am offering, and they're pre-sold. They're like, if there's chemistry between us and I feel like she understands my business and she gets me, I'm going to go ahead with this. I've got budget for it. I need help. I'm going to go with Naomi if it feels right. So this is where you want to be, because when it comes to following up, for me, if I were to follow up and say, hey, I just following up, see if you still wanted that LinkedIn profile, if you still wanted that coaching, if you still want to do my 7-day challenge, you know, if I phoned you up doing that, it's actually really inauthentic, because we've already decided together that the answer is no, it's not right for you, that no, we're not going to do it. So why would I keep phoning you and doing that? I can entice you with something else that might help, but it's really important. It just cuts the time down massively. So with all of these clients, it's really key to point out that they found me. There was no price negotiations. I am starting to consider if I put double my price down, if they would have bought. That would be interesting. I'll do that next time. And also there was no competition that I was aware of. And I also did this with between 2,000 and 4,000 followers on LinkedIn. In fact, when Canon came and the story I just told you, I probably only have 1,000 followers. I'm just about to hit up to the 5,000 followers. All of this has been happening for me naturally. I'm not a big fan of getting followers for followers' sake. I think that's vanity statistics. It's about doing quality work for people who are coming pre-sold and ready to buy. I mean, you could do all of this work and get 10,000 followers on your LinkedIn, but does that result in any more sales appointments being booked? It probably doesn't. And it also reduces the value of the search function as well. So, you know, these vanity statistics and things that we go after and feel like we should go after because other people tell us to, other gurus in this space tell us to, it actually is a false economy and doesn't actually mean anything. What we need is to be booking great sales appointments with people who really know, like, and trust us. And as an expert entrepreneur, we know that our businesses is based on our knowledge. We have experienced specialists. We're an experienced specialist in our industry. We solve very unique problems for our clients. Our business product is actually us, and our assets are our knowledge, insights, and our time is our most precious resource. So we need to protect it. I'm not sure how many of you have seen this diagram before, the psychology of how people buy, but I want to walk you through it again. The reason being is because there was actually a statistic out there, and I have chased the loop of it for the real reference, and I can't find the real reference where it comes from. They just reference each other around in a circle. And I think we know this to be true for ourselves, so I include it. But 74% of buyers choose the company that was first to add value as they were defining their buying decision. So that is the person who told you that you had a problem and helped you start to understand that problem and add value to you are more likely to buy from you than anybody else. So you added value and you helped them define the problem. There's a trust that is built up and a rapport that is built up, and oh, you get me, that they will stay with you. So the amazing thing about social media is it allows us to find an entirely new market that wasn't there before. And when we do that, we actually put ourselves in that position of being that trusted advisor to add value that they only want to work with you. And 74% is really high. So with that as well, it's really important to point out that when it comes to an entirely new market, people don't know they have a problem. They are just living with symptoms. So the number of you, when I look at your businesses, I know that you could come into somebody else's life, you could meet them somewhere, and you'd instantly spot, oh my gosh, I could help you. And you might give them your business card, you might pitch and say what you do, but there's absolutely no response from that person whatsoever. You think, oh my God, this is a brilliant prospect, they'd have to call me. But actually, there's no response from them whatsoever. Because they don't realize that they have a problem. Tessa, they don't realize that they're dressing badly and it's impacting them. They don't realize that their background on Zoom is just really inhibiting them presenting and looking good on a Zoom meeting. Louise, they don't know that they're more tired than they should be. and to be frank, farting more than they should be, because actually there's something wrong with their gut health. Do you know what I mean? They just don't know. They just think it's normal. They're just living with those symptoms, when actually, and we can't really like massively slap them over the face with it. We have to build up to it. But one thing they are aware of is the symptoms. And we'll know this from our own LinkedIn searches, that 71% of searches start with a generic search. So if my pipe burst in my house, I know to call a plumber. I'm an educated buyer. We all are. We're all educated on that. Pipes equal plumbers. But for many of us, when we have a problem in our business, we don't know the key terms to use. And therefore, we can't actually use SEO keywords. We can't actually find what we're looking for without starting off with a basic search and then refining it until we get to actually what we need. And it's exactly the same with our prospects, because they don't know they have a problem. They're living with the symptoms. They aren't going to come looking for your services. So this is the psychology of how people buy. And a lot of advice and input starts around this point here of invest. I know I have a problem and I'm looking for a solution. And therefore, I know the keywords and I'm going to put the keywords in, and up comes you on your website. And so that's keywords in SEO, search engine optimization. I'm going to invest in this solution. And when that happens, there's no relationship with you. And many companies will need 3 proposals and in order to be able to put that to their procurement and get it bought. And they are also going to negotiate with you on price, because there's no relationship. How much are you? Okay, and what features do you have and benefits? Great, now I'll go on to the next one. And they're treating you very much like a commodity, because they have a problem, they understand their problem, they know how to buy it, and they know the questions to ask. They ask the questions, they get the price, they compare you to somebody else, and then they try to knock you down on the price, or they don't work with you. There's no relationship. And actually, it makes a really hard working relationship, because they haven't sat with you, spent time with you, understood your expertise and why you really do know what you're talking about. You are a function for them. I need a job done. You're going to do it. Great. Price works. Let's do it. So this is actually the worst place to actually meet somebody at. What we really want to do is get that 74% working for us. And that is to go to the top of this circle there, the 12 o'clock on the clock, where it says new lead. A person who doesn't know they have a problem and are not looking for a solution. This is where we can talk about symptoms. So the symptoms of the problem you solve, what are they? How could we actually start talking about those symptoms and bringing a person to an awareness? Oh my goodness, the way I live right now is not optimal. I don't have to live this way. There is a better way. Other people don't have this solution. For a slight investment, I could do better. And with that awareness is created. And what we want to do is get that person to a place where they identify with it. And they say, oh my goodness, that's me. I'm struggling with that. I have that problem. I need that help. So it's creating awareness. At that point, once they've got that identity, like, oh my goodness, that's me. I live like that. They're going to start asking the question, well, what do I do about it? And they're going to start looking around and finding out about new things. If your content can answer that research piece with them, and it could just be 10 minutes they sit and research for, and really help them to go, yeah, I've researched this and I've diagnosed myself. Yeah, actually, I really do suffer with this problem. I need help. We are now at the next point. Like, I'm diagnosed at that point. I definitely have this problem. What am I going to do about it? Now, 10, 20 years ago, people would diagnose and then they might just get stuck there, or they start asking around and asking for help. These days, people don't just go straight to the invest stage. What they do is they self-implement. They go to YouTube and look for tutorials. They read a book. They want a free course. They do all sorts of stuff to try and do it for themselves. And that's great, because if people have tiny problems, they only have tiny budgets to solve them, because it's only big problems that people need solving, that people will pay big money for. There's a great quote I love that says, the bigger the problem you solve, the bigger the paycheck. And that's where you want to sit. You want to solve big problems. So when you give people content to solve small problems, they go away. They solve the problem and they go away. But they don't just go away. Firstly, they're not emailing you and taking up your time, which is a bind, because we have a limited amount of time. but we are building relationship up with them and they are getting to know us. They solve that problem for themselves and now they love you, they trust you as the expert. And so people who have problems, they talk to other people who have problems. They naturally, we just seem to naturally gravitate to other people who are experiencing the same thing. And what we also love to do is tell people when we've solved it. And we also love to give advice and tell people how to solve it. So what you actually end up doing is creating a whole army of mini experts. I went to a networking event once and I met this lady and she said, oh, I've heard of you. You've helped me solve a number of things on my LinkedIn profile because I just went to your website and your tutorial told me how to do it. So great, I've never heard of you. You didn't have investment need, budget or need for what I was doing, so you didn't get in touch. But she remembers me, and when LinkedIn profiles come up in conversation, it's my name that comes up. And there's going to be a percentage of people that she talks to that will actually be in a position where they can't self-implement and they really do need help. And those are the people that we want. So creating that free content, we don't want to overdo it because again, we've got limited time and resources and we don't want to be doing work we're not getting paid for, but we just want enough stuff out there that someone can self-implement to the point where they go, gee, do you know what? This problem is actually way bigger than I thought. The impact of this problem is way bigger than I thought. I cannot solve this myself from reading books and doing other things. I'm going to have to invest. I'm going to have to find a budget. And at this point, who are they going to invest with? They're going to invest with you, statistically proven, but also I think you can know from your own self that, yeah, actually, I would invest with the person I've spent the most time with. There's a Google statistic called Zero Moment of Truth, which says if someone spends 7 hours with you, has 11 touch points in 4 locations, they will buy from you. So 7 hours could be reading a book, spending time on videos, seeing you at a networking event repeatedly, 11 touch points, different moments when they've come into contact with you, and 7 locations could be in person, on Zoom, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. It could be your evergreen content or it could be an interaction with you, but those things create that level of trust. So these things really, really work and are really important. Once the person's decided to invest, I'm going to have to fix my problem. I understand my problem and I need to do something about it. They are going to ask, well, who am I going to do it with? So you can see there it says profile. And being a LinkedIn profile writer, you might assume that I just mean LinkedIn. Actually, I definitely mean LinkedIn more than any other platform. But I also mean there as well, anything that when your name is Googled, what comes up? So if you've got some trash out there, get rid of it. You don't need to be on every single platform. This isn't about being everywhere. This is just about looking quality and credible everywhere that you do come up. So that's what profile is there. How do you come across when someone Googles you? At this point, they go, yeah, this is definitely my person. And then they know that the next step is to have a sales conversation with you. And then that sales conversation has to take place in order to get to that sale, which is at 6 p.m. there. And that needs to be structured and put together really well. And I won't talk too much on that right now, but I have spoken about that many times before. And we will cover that in the 7-day challenge that I'm doing. And then also they need to see that you've got really clear transformational packages that are exciting and engaging. So all of that starts to come together and work for you to become that person, that the only person that prospect wants to work with. And I seem to have a repeat of slides. There we go. So basically what I'm saying is that we need to, there is really a simple formula to getting this outcome. If sales are our outcome, then we know that we've got to have sales appointments. And in order to have sales appointments, we have to have a compelling call to action. But you have to question, why does anyone want to speak with you in the first place? How does your call to action add value? Because nobody shows up for a chat. Nobody shows up for a free diagnostic of substance. No, they do. Sorry, a free chat about something. What you have to understand is it's never free. It's not free for you. It's not free for them. And you might think that the person paying the biggest bill on this free thing is actually you because it's your time. But actually the person paying the biggest bill is the person, because not only is it their time, it's their confidential information, and it's also their vulnerability. This could be the first time they've actually put words to their problem and opened up and said, actually, something's not right. And there's a a knock-on effect to that when we leave them at the end of the call, that is now a thing in their world, that before it was a hidden thing and now it's a thing. And we have an ethical responsibility to them to signpost them to the next thing and not just leave them hanging because they didn't buy from us. Now, I'm not saying you have to care for them and do all of this stuff, but it's about creating that compelling action, call to action that really contains and helps signpost the person to the next thing. So that is again in how you actually put it out there and say what it is. A sales appointment needs to be structured with a clear plan. Like I'm just saying there, it's got to be within a time frame and it's got to do the job in that time frame. And in order for all of this to work, to become that person, you've got to be an expert in your industry and actually stand for something. Most of you do, but I question, if it's not working, how well articulated is it? How well does that resonate with your audience? And it's just really important to recognize as well that our businesses are time sensitive, and time really is money, and we haven't got time to wait on any of these things. So just to give you a quick overview of the assets that we need to create in our business in order to make all this happen, is we need to have those transformational packages sorted. We need to be able to articulate what they are really well and show people we come in and we do this, then we do this, then we do this. It's a methodology that becomes yours, that you can build resources around as you go, working with prospects, not actually just doing it in hindsight of getting one, which will send you broke. You need to create content that matches the buyer's journey, the creating awareness, research, diagnose, identify, all of those things in the self-implement. There has to be content that you're creating around those areas. You need to get that sales appointment, that call to action nailed in how you put it together and how you get people into your diary. And you also need to have the script put together and your business pitch. You got to get that thing you're going to stand for sorted out. And more than anything, you need to understand why you are an expert in your industry, which sometimes we just know it subliminally, but we haven't actually really articulated it. So there's a number of assets there we've got to get sorted into our business. And this is something I want to help you with on the 7-day challenge. So I mentioned the 7-day challenge earlier on. There's the URL to it. I'll put it in the chat box. But basically, in the 7-day challenge, I'm going to help you put together all of these things. And we're going to be doing it with this worksheet, which I can post you out a physical copy of that. Henry, I will get you one of those with your book. So I was giving these out at the trade show last week with the leaflet. So we're going to be going through this and figuring it all out together. It's going to be 7 days. The weekend, we're not going to meet on the weekend. We're going to have homework over the weekend. But basically, we're going to figure out all of these things in that 7 days. We're going to meet every day from Wednesday to the Tuesday without the weekend, from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And so you're going to get more content like what I'm sharing with you now, but we're really going to go into each of those elements. Content is between 1 and 2 o'clock. And then after that, I'm going to stay on the call for another half an hour for any questions that you might have. It's going to be really interactive as well. So you can get answers to your actual issues, and you're going to access them. All the sessions and recordings through the online hub that I've mentioned as well. And we do have some upgrade options too. And just to say as well that if you want to read the book too, then obviously you've got the download there that you can look at too. We're going to go into a breakout room for a few minutes. I've shared a lot there. I have shared an awful lot there. So what I'm really interested in your breakout rooms, as well as introducing yourself to those you don't know, why not take some time and just identify of all the things I've talked about, and especially around that asset list. And maybe I'll put that, actually you can't read the whole chat when you're in there, but of this asset list, just identify one thing there that you think that perhaps you haven't quite got sorted in your business, that you need the most attention, and then have a discussion about that within your group. What's working for you, what's not working for you, and what do you think is the main thing that needs attention? Does that work for everyone?